grinding at the machine every day for all my life. I used to do it and I needed it. It's the only thing I want is just to rush, push, cash.
Marijuana. You may have heard of it. You may have seen someone smoking it, like those burnout bohemians or that crazy-eyed cassette.
Much like strong alcohol.
Plays a different game, and most agree on some things, but all agree, they say, everybody loves a burger if they can have it fixed their way. That's why America loves burgers. We're America's Burger King. Oh yes, America loves burgers, and we're America's Burger King. Oh, you can love them big or love them small and everything or nothing at all. America loves burgers, and we're America's Burger King.
We make 600 million burgers a year, one at a time.
And we're America's Burger King.
In the 1970s, an average of $6 billion was spent on fast foods. The success and growth of the industry can be boiled down to the money and effort that is pumped into advertising. Over the decades, the activity of purchasing and consuming fast food has become second nature, which has strengthened over the years. Similar to now, 40 years ago, the public was exposed to 1,600 different formed ads in a single day, though a study found that less than 80 of these were actually noticed, while 12 ads created a response from the viewer. Because of this study, ad agencies set out to increase more opportunities for a possible consumer to view their product. This affected everything from diet, landscape, to workforce, to economy. All of these have been drastically influenced by the fast food industry. For you to compare, just think a generation or two ago, the money spent on home-prepared meals accounted for 3/4, while today, restaurants and fast food take half of this money. While fast foods seemed to take over worldwide, in 1977, the introduction to the first dietary goal, led by George McGovern, outlined fat as being responsible for major health concerns such as heart disease. As this was the first real diet-based publication, the food industry took advantage and started advertising low-fat products. With food quickly and readily available at chain restaurants that was promoting this new seemingly healthy way of eating, the general public found no real desire to create home cooking. This removal of fat led to the appearance of carbohydrates, and due to the addition of sugars, raised more health concerns. On promoting this idea, authors started to release cookbooks similar to the Whole Earth Cookbook and the Diet for a Small Planet, which promoted natural ingredient home cooking, though this was in the minority of popular diets, as the general public were constantly bombarded by fast food advertising and couldn't walk 5 feet down the road without seeing a chain restaurant or the byproduct of such establishment. During the same time, many culinary trends came to light, one of which was the beginning of the artistic or theatrical food presentation. If successfully accomplished, the art of giving a particular food the appearance of another was a sign of wealth and stature, along with superior culinary skills. This high-end version of turning one thing into something else eventually funneled down the line, promoting the idea of magically turning packaged powder into a beautiful cake just by adding water. Though women were venturing more and more into the workforce, the mentality for them to still provide a meal for their family was still apparent. Because of this, brands such as Betty Crocker removed some of the powdered ingredients to allow the maker to feel as though they contributed more than a cup of water. This small deduction increased sales of cake mix and others of the like, and those who purchased such items felt more satisfied with their input, thus enjoying the outcome more. Food companies such as Jell-O increased their purchases by releasing Jell-O-dedicated cookbooks with a variety of recipes, all centralizing around their primary product. Companies also started to cater to other nationalities that were starting to pop up around various countries. And while different denominations tried their hand at cultural food promoting, the eyes of the public began to try their taste buds at foreign cuisines such as Asian stir-fries, Italian pizzas, and Indian curries. The introduction of fast food was not just food chains as we know as McDonald's, KFC, and Hungry Jack's. Grocery stores also started stocking mass amounts of food and drinks for people on the go. These processed items were seen as much better than the handmade artisan-style products as they were stepping forwards towards the future and had an air of space age about them. Products such as instant coffee, instant mashed potato, and cheese-flavoured biscuits were amongst these. Advertising generally followed trends. From the low-fat to the no-sugar to even the new diet version, ads are finely tuned to replicate our wants and needs. The 70s took on a whole new strategy to help increase sales. This was done by creating comparisons. This responded well with the public, and some of the most notable comparative ads included 7-Up Uncola, Coke's It's the Real Thing, and Pepsi's Hidden Camera and Blind Taste Test. Another interesting strategy that was soon banned was subliminal messaging, placing words that the agency wanted associated with their product. Some examples included Ritz and Gilbert Vodka's sex embedded into their image, and Coca-Cola with their sexual implication imagery. Major food industries have been a powerhouse and a driving force in our economy, with almost everyone had eaten there, worked there, or just plain out seen one. Since the 70s, advertisements and in particular the food industry have played a major role in the success of the enterprise and will continue to do so.
When your furniture needs a change or two, RV Furniture will show you something new. RV Furniture Decorators, RV Furniture Innovators, RV Furniture. Come on, come on, come on, come on, RV Furniture.
The 70s was a decade of breaking the past traditions and rules, and the same carried through in the world of interiors. It is often looked at as the decade that is forgotten, but has since had many revivals. What was happening in the 70s to influence interiors? The race to space was something everyone was inspired by, following other firsts such as the movie Jaws, the game Space Invaders, and the end of the Vietnam War. Equal rights and technological advances such as nearly every home featuring a television or computer. These influences were prevalent in the interiors, which we will see later on. It is safe to say that the 70s left a great impact on interiors. The biggest trend that formed in the 70s was to break all the rules and let colour and pattern clash. The following trends created the path for the aesthetic of the 70s. Open plan living. This is something that is still very prevalent in today's interiors, but in the time it broke all the rules of traditional home layouts and challenged the way of living in the 20th century. Shaggy carpets. It's all about the soft furnishings in the 70s, but almost every home would have featured a shaggy pile rug, especially in the colours such as burnt orange, yellow, cream, and beige. Geometric shapes and patterns. In the 70s, long gone were the years of curves. It was all about pattern throughout architecture and interiors. The homes were full of vibrant geometric patterns in wallpapers and fabrics especially. Nature. The 70s was all about the decade of connecting with nature. This included bringing in the outside in with colour, texture, and creating large open windows that looked out onto any views. Colour. Since the 70s was inspired by nature, you could expect to see a lot of colours drawn from the earth, such as brown, beige, green, yellow, orange, burnt orange, and pink. Colours weren't just in the soft furnishings, however. They were included in the kitchen and bathroom joinery. It was the decade of colour. Just like an interior trend of being influenced by nature, so were advertisements. This was seen in texture, colour, pattern, and fonts used in the graphics. But the biggest trend that influenced interiors in the 70s was advertising. 70s advertising could finally reach a bigger audience. This occurred due to equal rights movement making waves in the 70s. Women were also becoming more of a target in marketing, as they were finally being treated as an end buyer. This was because 34% of women were married with kids, but 34% were not married, and 27% had kids and were not married either. This meant that advertising would be more swayed towards women viewers. Even though women and men were the main targets of interior advertisements, they were for different reasons. Men were often viewed in advertising when it came to sofas and relaxing in armchairs, and women were also were shown more in the bedroom furniture and soft furnishing advertisements. Ads often featured realistic graphics with heavily patterned interiors with lots of colour, and also full of decoration and always featured a catchy slogan. A lot of interior advertising consisted of large chunky furniture, and a popular one was the fold-out sofa beds, and often matching furniture sets was popular in the 70s. It is also evident in the 70s that they valued the quality of all of their furniture. There are many furniture polishing and cleaning ads out there, just as many as the furniture ads themselves. The most popular form of outlets for these advertisements were in the form of newspapers, magazines, and television advertisements. It is safe to say that the 1970s broke traditions in the world of interiors and set trends for the future. It is also evident that advertising heavily influenced what trends occurred in homes around the world in the 70s.
The cultural movements of the 70s undoubtedly influenced the visual culture of the decade. The decade produced iconic figureheads in music across a range of different genres, from psychedelic rock to glam pop to disco. The prominent forces from the 70s are referenced and revered still to this day for their boundary-pushing looks, concepts, their activism, and their vision. Advertising in the form of album covers, tour posters, and collaborative editorials helped to sell the look of the act, a key ingredient to a successful career at the time. The 70s is known for its iconic fashion moments, and there was a distinct cross-pollination with the music industry in terms of fashion advertising. Ads were directed at clubgoers and at those seeking to be part of the wild and wonderful fashion movements. Inspired by the popular music of the time, brands would collaborate with important artists to help sell the key theme in their products. A notable subject in advertising in the 70s is drugs. Unlike today, advertising recreational drugs and the culture surrounding them was commonplace. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and a whole lot of cocaine usage was advertised as the norm. Prescription drug advertisements utilized themes and geometries we now associate with the decade in order to promote a new product. It would be remiss not to mention the overt sexism and racism of the 70s advertising world. In attempts to micro-target communities, companies made naive attempts that would utilize nothing more than stereotypes in order to sell their message.